although the different versions of it are maybe hard to get your mind around, but we're going to talk about all these things today. We're going to talk about the second test, so make sure to take notes today. And again, I just don't understand. I mean, half the class just won't even have your book out on the table. You know, it doesn't make sense to me. Seriously, bring a book.
Wait, you use my phone?
No, but I want to see it on your desk. I mean, why are you not bringing the book?
I read chapter 8.
Huh?
I read chapter 8.
Okay. You're supposed to read chapter 9 too. Read the syllabus. It's on there. All right, everybody done?
Practice better than nothing, right?
Again. Oh, I only committed fraud on half of the things that I did.
You can't make a comparison like that.
Why not? Your duty
Because
is...
you're taking something that's negative.
Tristan, just stop it right now, seriously.
No, seriously.
Okay? Just stop. Just stop, because don't come into my class without reading. All right?
I did read it.
You didn't read all of it. And half is 50% is an F.
What?
50%. If you only do 50% of the work, that's an F. Okay? So I appreciate you read chapter 8, but still, you have to read both chapters. I will not compromise on this. And the department will back me up completely. I've talked to them repeatedly about this. Okay? School's on my side. That's why they have the attendance policy they do, and that's why they are so tough on the grades. Okay? You guys should appreciate that. This is a real school. I've taught at other schools where it was a complete joke. People just passed without doing any work. Maybe some of you are like, what school is that?
Yeah, I want to go there.
Why? So you can get a degree that means absolutely nothing? You paid $40,000 or $50,000 for a piece of toilet paper? This is why I'm starting my own school. Okay? And there won't be people who are not dedicated to school in my school. And there won't be dumb electives and stupid stuff, core classes, and dumb stuff like that. It's not even going to have a campus. It's going to be totally distanced and online. Okay? All right, what was chapter 8 about?
The psychology behind cultivation theory and how different people interpret the same thing differently, and how you kind of bend whatever you see to what you want to see.
Okay, so that's one element of what was going on there. Did that call into question the assumptions of cultivation theory at all? So what were some of the things that they tried to understand what was driving cultivation? What were some of the things they were discussing? You mentioned sort of in general what some of these things were. So what some of the things were they were looking at? We've discussed some of these already.
I think they were looking at people's memory to see like
that was one thing.
Interpreted it, if it even stuck with them what they watched on TV.
What's the problem if they're looking at people's memory, but people have been watching television from the time they were an infant? Or 1 or 2.
Well, memories can be false or distorted, and if you've been watching TV since you were a little kid, you're not going to remember everything that you've ever seen on TV.
I can't remember what page it was that they talked about. One of the issues with this narrative reality was the difference between reality and this narrative description of reality. That people will watch the movie about Richard Nixon and think that was history, or watch JFK and conflate these things. One of the things that they've studied people who watch historical dramas and things like that, and that people tend to, like if you watch Glory, that's not what happened. That's not what happened. You watch a movie about U.S. Grant or the Gettysburg Battle or something like that, that was a movie. You can bet that's not the way it happened. Okay, they combine events. Now, some of the stuff is realistic. Maybe they get the year right. Maybe they get the costumes right. But in general, they don't know what somebody said to somebody else 150 years ago, or even 80 years ago, or in a closed-door meeting. Okay? So that's part of it, that what we remember is impacted by pop culture in general. What else? Anything else? Yes?
I talked about people's already pre-existing perceived realities.
Right.
And how their worldview alters how they interpret television.
So in this question, in this chapter, are they trying to improve cultivation theory, or are they just trying to say that, look, maybe the stuff that you saw is some kind of statistical anomaly in reality, what matters the most, like you just said, was people's political position beforehand, or people's attitudes and tastes and preferences. But again, I think one of the problems becomes is, to show this on the board is, essentially have, TV viewing, whatever it is, amount or content, and they're saying that it impacts people's personal views or values, people's personality, maybe a good way to put it, and value system. But then in chapter 8, they're saying that it's actually the value system and personality that drive what you would watch and how much you would watch. Some people don't like television. They wouldn't watch television. Some people don't like crime dramas. So I wouldn't be impacted by this mean world theory that suggests that television shows crime at a greater rate. So again, what then it comes down to is the idea of, is cultivation linear or is it cyclical or reciprocal? But these two things interact with each other on a level where you cannot pull them apart. Okay. The one thing, though, this is a model. This is a general model for how people use the media, particularly with fiction or even news. And this should be for well-informed adults. We can also look at the linear relationship, or at least the one where it looks at TV viewing and looks at these personal variables as both leading into cultivation effect. But normally what we don't see is this disappear. However, TV viewing for very young viewers and for uneducated viewers becomes a serious problem. There are people who will watch a movie and want to go out and hurt somebody or perform some act. Like there's kids that and I mentioned this before, that when Jackass came out, one of the stunts that they did was they jumped over a moving car on a skateboard, and some kid went out and did this and got killed. But there are people like that. So we could make the statement that even though the cultivation theory has either been improved or been essentially dismantled, because this is what we call the interpretation model. That's what they were getting at. Or also the feedback loop. That what television does is, I'm not going to watch a show that differs with my opinion. And if we have time today, I'm going to show you some stuff that will hopefully make this point. But you may watch a show, like for example, so I'm not going to watch a show, if I'm a Democrat, I'm not going to watch a show about Republicans unless maybe to make fun of it, and certainly not going to change my mind about anything. Maybe if I'm undecided, it might sway me one way or the other, but usually partisan type of rhetoric is a ridiculous reality, and most people are turned off by it. That's why most people don't make their decisions who they're going to vote for president until like the last month or so, because they usually just turn off all this political garbage. Similarly, you can take something like All in the Family or The Chappelle Show and say that because that sends mixed messages, or at least can be interpreted in different ways, that one person would look at Dave Chappelle and say it was racist, and another one would think it was funny because it was a satire, and you can say the same thing about All in the Family, and that depends on pre-existing racial beliefs or attitudes, stereotypes, what race you actually are, what your age is. So the social demographic variables play into that type of stuff. That's what this is talking about. Okay? It's not as simple as this little circle, but I think that's one way to look at it. All right, what was chapter 9 about? This one's pretty simple, I think. And Tristan, I hope you do read chapter 9 because I think you'll enjoy it.
Well, since Cultivation Theory came out, there's been a lot of new different types of media and kind of
And this book's older, so they don't really talk about MySpace and YouTube. YouTube wasn't even around, actually. This was published in 2003. I wish they do have more updated stuff, but we can sort of extrapolate what would be said. So what do you think would be the position? Cultivation theory suggests that because there's limited choices or because content is restricted. Remember, cultivation is similarly, it piggybacks off of the big six thing in the media monopoly that, look, there's certain companies, and they even talk about this later on in chapter 9, and I think later on in chapter 10, that because only a small amount of major multinational corporations control media content, that media content is driven towards profit centers. Profit centers in the media are sex and violence, or drugs, or alcohol, or sensationalism, or whatever stuff that people are attracted to. There's a reason why they put Anna Nicole Smith's death on CNN and it was 44% of the coverage, why Mother Teresa got a little blurb on the bottom of the screen. Okay? Mother Teresa's life wasn't sexy enough. Maybe if she would have been killed by a bunch of insane monkeys and they pulled her arms apart, they would have put her on TV. Probably would have put the monkeys on TV. Okay? Just like they put that Cho kid that killed all those people in Virginia Tech on TV. Without thinking, they just put this jerk with his little video where he's pointing guns at the camera going, I'm going to kill all your family and kids and stuff like that. I didn't have to do this. You're all a bunch of scums, and I'm going to go kill you right now. And not even thinking about the victims' families having to watch that garbage. You want to see your own family's murderer on TV, mocking you, and things like that. So because TV orients itself towards primarily sex and violence or really questionable material, that the internet would be a much more open reality and that stuff wouldn't occur. What were some of the things that they found, though, that...
I thought really cultivation theory could still be applied to like the internet and cable TV and stuff.
Right, you actually hear Gerbner. Gerbner talks about this on 206. He says, he was questioned, this was in 1997, before the internet, so it was to see whether or not you agree with this or not. Gerbner was asked, there was some hope in the early days of cable that with more channels we could get more diversity of selection. And you can make a statement with internet, there should be more diversity of material. That doesn't seem to have worked. No, and it never will. There is no technological fix to basically a social cause problem. He's saying that it's not about what transmission mode you use. It's about culture. He's saying, because Americans, on the whole, and just like most people around the world, maybe it's a human phenomenon too, are attracted to, whether you like it or not, people want to watch train wrecks. They want to watch executions on TV. They want drama. They want blood. They want, if it ain't blood, then put me some skin on there. Okay? Show me some nipples or whatever it is. Something that will get people's mind excited. Playing to the base elements. That this is embedded in the culture. And media is just an expression of it. Do you guys realize that when the... Take a guess what were some of the first photographs that were made when the camera was invented?
Well, one of them, I was about to say, I think I know the first photograph was actually just of a street, but I guess dead people.
Well, that was one of them. The other one was pornography.
Oh.
Naked people, naked pictures went around like... I think people went penny arcades to watch like Tom and Jerry. You know, I mean seriously. You got a little show. I think that people... You have to realize that people in the 1900s, early, especially in the 1920s, they were more hedonistic and filled with debauchery than people right now. I mean, there were no boundaries in the 1920s for people's behavior. And there were no surveillance cameras or cell phones to capture this stuff or internet. People could do things privately and nobody would ever find out about them. Okay? And just like now, people in the 20s were, and beforehand, even before that, were obsessed with sex. I mean... and violence. So what he's saying here, this is cultural. He goes on to say, technology is a tool that is used by those who have the most power and the ability to use it. The fact is that there are more channels but fewer owners. This means that the same kind of programming can be programmed across many more channels. Time Warner today can commission a book, then commission a movie made on the book, then commission a movie made on the making of the movie about the book, and then nowadays you put a website and a video game and you sell merchandise. This Hunger Games crap is going to dominate the internet. They're going to make more money off of the merchandising and all the other crap than they are going to make at the box office.
That's kind of like about like what you're talking about, because you know what it's about.
It's
like,
violence.
It's like, yeah, it looks at like how like people are unsensitized to violence because like they broadcast them fighting to the death on TV, and
right.
to like the rich people, that's like.
It's very similar to Rollerball, the original one and the remake. And there's a lot of movies that that hint at this kind of thing. That like this, what's the other one? Running Man. Anybody ever seen Running Man? I'm surprised you haven't seen it. Aren't the former governor of California and talk about a degenerate. Anyway, who impregnated his maid. Anyway, that Running Man was like that too. They would shoot somebody into like this sort of apocalyptic reality, and they'd have to fight their way out. In Running Man, he was a prisoner, and if you escaped, then he was allowed to be set free. And they wrongly did that. But it was a TV show too. So they played on that element that in the future, and also Death Race 2000, the original one, which by the way stars Sylvester Stallone, one of his first roles in before he did Rocky. This was 75 or 74, something like that. But this type of plot, this is why I laugh at what's the name of this woman? Suzanne something. Right. All she did was read Rollerball and RoboCop and a lot of these other things, and just kind of similar with J.K. Rowling. Nothing J.K. Rowling, and I would say the same thing about Anne Rice or the Twilight series. That none of that is original content. There's not a single bit of dialogue or descriptive phrases that doesn't come directly out of some older text or some plot twist. And I think that's one of the reasons why Gardner says this stuff. Is that, look, if you've ever studied, whoever here, who's taken a drama class? Anybody taken a drama class? Or you've heard the Greeks tell you that, look, there's only a certain number of plots. Okay? If you look at it, Shakespeare did all the plots. You want to know what all the plots in drama are, go back and read or watch Shakespeare's plays, because it contains them all, from tragedies to romances to comedies to satires to whatever else. And this woman is very clever. She took highly recognizable symbols, laced it with a large amount of violence. I don't usually read, I don't have time to read books for fun, but I might be considered looking, you don't even need to read the book, all you have to do is read the synopsis really, I mean you can fill in the blanks. Have you read the book?
Yeah.
How long is it? 5,000?
No, it's like 300 something.
Okay. That would be pretty quick to read. So, but do you think, what's the attraction of the book if I would just go see the movie?
Kind of like looks at like, it doesn't like glamorize it. It shows you that this is wrong, and it just kind of, I don't know, like I just really liked it because I liked the character. Like it wasn't like, oh, Taffy Twilight, where like she has to like depend on the guy. Like she was kind of like.
So you're saying the gender roles were changed?
Yeah, like she had to like survive herself.
And that's probably explainable by the fact that a woman wrote the book.
Especially the gender roles are pretty swapped because the guys depending on.
Yeah, like he's kind of weak to guys.
Okay. What year is it set in? Do you know?
It doesn't say. It just like hundreds of years in the future.
It's always good. It reminds me of Philip K. Dick. He wrote a book called The Man in the High Chair, where he suggested that he posited an alternative world where Germany and Japan won World War II. So this is a very common kind of thing. But again, it doesn't mean it's not good. But I'm always suspicious of things that the general public gloms onto. That's why I can't stand Harry. I've tried to sit down and watch those movies. It's the worst kind of tripe I've ever seen. It's one little dog and pony little trick after the next. And it's like, I know where the plot is going. I can't. The problem is, I have a theater history degree, so I've seen every plot known to man. I've been in plays, and I've written plays. And for me to sit and watch a movie or a TV show, I just sit there and point out plot holes, and man, that was bad dialogue, and ugh, my God, how formulaic can you get? That's why I can't stand the first 3 Star Wars movies. It's like, the only part I like is in Revenge of the Sith is when Anakin turns evil and he goes to the Jedi Temple and just starts slaughtering people. That's the only part I even like about that movie. It's the only part that makes sense. Because Darth Vader shouldn't be a pretty boy who looks like he should be in Boys or like In Sync or something like that. I mean, that's who Hayden Christensen looks like. He looks like some pretty boy. Darth Vader should have scars all over his face and look like some kind of lunatic who would eat, somebody's dog for lunch. That's what Darth Vader's a murderer. He's Hitler. So anyway, but regardless, what will come out with that Hunger Game, first of all, you can bet, first of all, Lionsgate stock has been up 72%. They're the ones who put this out. And their previous most successful movie was Fahrenheit 9/11, which is that Michael Moore thing that was not similar to Loose Change, but in a similar vein of attacking the Bush administration. But regardless, you're going to see sequels. You're going to see merchandising. People are going to sell T-shirts. I guarantee they've already got a website. I assure you that if they don't have a video game out, it's in the works, so that they can. What we call this is bundling, where you create a reality. I guess it's better to turn a book into a video game than a video game into a movie, the way they did with Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and some of these other things that were kind of questionable as
commercial vehicles, and they didn't perform that well anyway. So anyway, to go on though with what Gerbner said, this is a little bit different. This has changed, but it makes the point about mergers. Now Seagram's has bought Universal Studios. It no longer has to place advertising. It no longer has to place drinking scenes. If I was R.J. Reynolds or Altria or the British American Tobacco Company, I would go buy a studio or a TV company so I could jam my cigarettes into their, like Mad Men, if you've ever seen this show. There's nothing but smoking that goes on. And I would be absolutely shocked if Philip Morris and all these other companies weren't shoveling money down AMC's throat. And guess who makes Mad Men? The same company that made Hunger Games, Lionsgate, made this. So, is there smoking in Hunger Games? No smoking? No cigarettes? Any alcohol?
Yeah, there's a drunk character.
Now they can just produce movies on their own and programs on their own in which their product is more frequently represented as a part of life than if it were owned by a tobacco company. But if it is owned by a tobacco company, then you have the star smoking. And I'll tell you right now, this goes on. You think that tobacco companies are under assault, but by the government. But here's the little rub, and this is what drives people crazy about the government. There's also elements inside the government that have tobacco growers and tobacco companies in their congressional districts. Tobacco companies make billions of dollars every year while they kill 500,000 people in this country alone, 5 million people worldwide. They account for 63% of the deaths due to non-communicable diseases. Meaning after you get past flu and AIDS and all this other stuff, the number one cause of death around the world besides that stuff is tobacco-related illnesses. Okay? And so they want their product, but they want their product out there. There was a Simpsons episode on last night called "Smoke on the Daughter," where Lisa was a ballet dancer and she was smoking for focus. Okay, and it's whether they were talking against cigarettes, but they were talking for cigarettes. Cigarette companies don't care if you run your mouth about them. Like I would say with these anti-smoking commercials, I don't think they're necessarily hurting tobacco companies with this stuff, showing people coughing or with a stoma. They're still talking about cigarettes, aren't they? If I'm a candy company, I don't care if my product kills people. I just want it in people's hands. I don't care. Just like car manufacturers. 12,000 people die every year from automobile accidents. You think Ford gives a damn? They're not doing anything. And they resisted seatbelts and airbags for the longest time. Companies don't care. And just like media companies, they don't care. They just want you to get the product in your eyeballs. I've told you repeatedly, if they could sell crack and child pornography in the same vending machine, they would. That's the way capitalism works. There are no boundaries. It's like total war. If you got to bomb civilians, that's what you do. Okay, in a symbolic sense. If you got to kill people to sell your product, that's just what you do. And if you get the government to go along with it, even better. It is a new and insidious development. Advertising is not the prime mover anymore. Marketing is not so much the commercials, but it's what the advertisers and those who own and finance productions want to express and build into this program and motion pictures themselves. So let's look at, since they didn't talk about the internet, let's take a minute to talk about the internet. Because I believe on question 3 I asked you a little bit about new media. Let me check here. So one of the ideas here, and we talked about this in the first section. I guess I didn't ask you about that, but anyway. And we'll talk about confirmation bias as well. But anyway. So one of the issues that comes up with the internet is the internet potentially, this is the people who advocate the internet, the people who are these techie people who probably own stock in company because they want you to buy products like Android, or whatever the hell it is, or Oracle systems. They will tell you the internet is the holy grail. It is the Garden of Eden. It is what we've all been waiting for. It makes you into a publisher. You can do online videos. You can change the face of the media. Has anything changed in the internet? What dominates the internet? More specifically, what types of content?
X-rated stuff.
To an extent, I saw when the internet first started, for a while, the percentage of sites that were porno sites was in the high 30s, like 30% of all internet sites were pornography. And I don't suggest you do this, but if you want to test this theory out, I'm not going to do it on the computer here. Just put the word sex into Google. and see how many hits come up. I bet it'll break the system. Put in violence. Let's do that one. We can do that. See what comes up. Should I look through Google? I guess this is Google right here.
Actually, if you're talking sex, the whole first page was no porn on it. Oh, wait.
You just do it?
Yeah.
And you'd think that Wikipedia's page on sex would come up, or CDC, or psychologists about sex, or studies about sex. But again, that shows you how prominent pornography is on the web. And let's put it this way. Where is the only place, virtually the only place, where you can buy child pornography? Can you go buy it at the store? Where can you buy it? Online. That is the only place on this planet. Except for some back room in somebody's house. And they probably got stuff on the internet anyway. That's disturbing. You can buy drugs on the internet. You can buy alcohol. Okay? The internet is the Wild West meets steroids or something. Okay? It is insane. Wild West capitalism or something. Okay? Alright, let's look up violence here. So this says 566 million results. And I love Wikipedia, comes right up. Okay? And if I put in something like violence against kids, or Charles Manson, or Hitler, let's put in Hitler. Let's see how many things come up for Hitler, since he's the boogeyman. Everybody likes to ignore what Stalin did. Stalin was as bad, if not worse, than Hitler. And as soon as the war was over, Stalin started killing Jewish people. When people like to forget that. They had a second Holocaust. 213 million results for Hitler. That means, do you guys realize what that means? That 213 million people in this world put up a website based on Hitler. Or something akin to that. That 250 million people thought it was important enough to post something on Hitler. The absurdity of that. So is the internet really any different than television? Or the newspapers? Or novels? Or any of these things? So is Gerbner right that this seems to be a cultural issue, not an issue of what technology we're talking about here? That narratives seem to come out of culture. They're embedded in culture. Let me put it this way. Were the Romans violent people? Did they watch TV or the internet? Probably would have helped them out. Maybe if they were home watching TV, they wouldn't have been throwing Christians to the lions and doing gladiatorial crap or whatever else. Rome was so hedonistic. They used to have these things when you would go into a dining hall that were like, right next to you was this thing where you ate and ate until you vomited, and then you puked, and then you kept eating. Wow. That's how sick people used to be. They didn't watch any TV, okay? They defined, that became part of their culture. Violence, sex, especially like if we look at Sparta. Violence and sex, even things like homosexuality, were completely normalized, taught to children, and embedded in the culture, and embedded in Greek drama. If you've ever seen Greek drama, it's all about weird things, and sexuality, and violence, and war. What do we remember from Greece? The Trojan War. What do we remember from Rome? Julius Caesar getting assassinated, right? Or Caligula having sex with his horse. That's the type of stories people remember, right? So is what's going on here with narratives, is this more of a human cultural aspect, or is it due to the technology itself?
I think it's human, because the example is
What do you think, though, that 3D and CGI, special effects, and sort of the refinement of dramatic presentation or dramatic technique, let me put it another way. Compare the impact that Greek drama might have, where people wearing masks on a stage with limited special effects and kind of muted dialogue, versus things like, name a movie, Basic Instinct or something like that, or Black Swan.
I mean, you could say the same thing like how boxing has gone to like UFC fighting.
Okay, so there seems to be an intensification based on what? What is driving UFC?
Violence, blood.
Okay, but why is it on TV though? Because
People enjoy watching.
so why does the company put it on?
To make profit.
Exactly. That boxing ain't enough. People want to see people get kicked. And I'll tell you, in the early days of UFC, if you ever saw it, they had no weight restrictions. So somebody that weighed 300 pounds could fight somebody that weighed 150 pounds. Do you remember that, Martin?
Yeah.
When UFC, it used to be called Ultimate Fighting, essentially. And there was another one, I think there was two of them at one point, they merged or something like that. MMA or something. There were two of them at one point. But anyway, and how some of these people got big, like Kimbo Slice, does anybody know how he got big? This is directly related to what we're talking about. Yeah, he was supposedly knocking homeless people out in like one punch, blasting them. And he eventually got to the championship, and then what happened to him?
He lost.
Yeah, he got beaten like, wasn't it 17 seconds or something like that? And everybody was like, this is a fraud. And I've seen these UFC things, and where do they show these things on regular television?
Pay-per-view.
Pay-per-view. People are so interested in this stuff, just like boxing used to be. I still find it funny. But it doesn't surprise me because I used to like this as a kid. I hate to actually admit that. And some of my cousins still watch this. That wrestling gets so much attention on pay-per-view. Because is wrestling real? I mean, okay, look, you can get hurt. All right, no doubt about it. Jumping off of tables and hitting, like they really do slam them on the ground. They just don't do it really hard. And when they punch them, they go like this with their foot, so it makes noise. And you can see they're not hitting anybody. It's really absurd. But it's funny. But what's interesting about that is sort of fictionalized, stylized violence. It is scripted violence, the way like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is scripted, right? You know that. Like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Not only is that not real, it's not even human beings. It's a cartoon, and they're radioactively altered turtles. I'll tell you one thing. There's probably something wrong with sending the message that when you get bit by a radioactive spider, it gives you superpowers, or when you go through radioactive goo, you turn into Ninja Turtles. That's probably not a good signal to send to kids about nuclear things. They might go to Japan and wallow around in something or something stupid. I hope that wouldn't happen. But anyway, so regardless, what's going on here, the internet seems, and even though he wasn't, didn't comment specifically on the internet seems to have the same amount of issues that television and newspapers do. And is all of this content coming from big media companies that's on the internet? Did UFC put Kimbo Slice on the YouTube? Who put his videos up there? He did. Right? How about this Coney? Have you ever seen this Coney video? Where this warlord in Uganda was abusing children and dragging them into his army and stuff like that. Was that put up by the UN or NBC or anything like that? No, it was put up by individuals. So it appears that even though individuals have the power to put up non-violent content and non-sexual content, what happens if you put up something that's not sensational or not sexually oriented or violently oriented on YouTube?
You won't get the attention you want.
No one gives a damn. No one gives a damn about your opinion about, or are you doing a cover song of Justin Bieber's song? Okay, no one wants to see that. And I get mad when I try to look up a song that people's stupid karaoke crap comes up on my computer. I don't want to see somebody with a guitar sounding like a bag of geese that are being choked. I don't want to hear that. I mean, that sounds terrible. Okay? And again, YouTube is... One of the things I will say that another thing that YouTube does, you get fame seekers on YouTube. You get people who think, again, like they're going to sing a Whitney Houston song, and all of a sudden a record producer's going to see them and sign them. I think American Idol damaged people's brains about what it really takes to be famous. I don't think a single one of those people on American Idol have ever written a song in their life. Maybe Carrie Underwood. Maybe she wrote that song where she's smashing windows. But again, if you look at these things that come out on the internet, or these, like Justin Bieber, what kind of songs does he sing? He came out of the internet. What kind of songs does he sing? Dopey love songs, right? Dopey, squeaky, screechy love songs that men use to try to seduce women, which never works, and women use to construct a false reality for what a romance should be. And then in the end, people get married, and then 5 years later they get a divorce, and the kids are stuck in the lurch. And the kids grow up being cynical about it. Anyway. But let's face it, look.
Justin Bieber wasn't doing anything that, you know, Madonna or somebody, Madonna did it better on some levels, but all these other artists before him. So the internet seems to be reproducing the same issues that we're having in cultivation theory. One of the things though that makes the internet more unique is that are all the websites, or I mean we got 213 million, how many websites do you think are on the internet? 57 trillion. Tristan, you want to look that up for me? How many websites are on the internet? Thank you. But if you think about it, alright, fine, there's plenty of sites of violence. How many people here, there's a site on the internet you go to where there's no violence or sex? There's none of this stuff. What kind of sites are they, Martin?
Music site.
Okay. But the music is about romance and stuff usually, or what kind of music do you like? I don't want to put musical taste into your mouth. Name a band you like. You don't have to be embarrassed.
Parkway Drive.
Okay, what kind is that? Oh, okay. Alright. What about you? What kind of website?
Well, I was thinking like TMZ, but I think that's a bad example.
Yeah, because that's similar to what... I mean, we have violence, sex, and sensationalism, and usually TMZ is talking about somebody dating somebody or embarrassing somebody or Kanye punching somebody in the face. And I would say to these reporters, you don't want to get punched by Kanye. I suggest you stay away from him. I don't understand why they keep bothering him because I think somebody wants to sue him, and I got news, so I don't think Kanye's got a lot of money. Yeah, the way he spins like MC Hammer.
Alright, as of June 2011, there's 346,004,403.
How much again?
Wait, how many?
386 billion probably, because there's 216 million for Hitler alone. If it's four commas, it's billions. What's it say? All right. While you get it, we'll still talk. Now, so we've talked a little bit about the chapters. We'll come back to that in a minute. I do want to show you though, and I'd be interested to see how this went around. Let me show you what a lot of people feel. Remember we talked, I think this is a good thing in the sense of, this shows this idea that the news is willing to criticize the president and make him look bad. They've done surveys. What do you think of most journalists, what party do you think they belong to? The Democrats or the Republicans? Yeah, most of them are Democratic. Most of them are very liberal too. It doesn't mean that they're unfair to Bush or Palin, because think about it. Were they unfair to George Bush in 2004 during the election? Because if they were, what would have happened? Probably would have lost. I mean, he was really in trouble. I mean, the only thing he had going for him is the economy was doing well. They had Abu Ghraib broke, and all this other stuff. The war was going terribly. He looked and sounded repeatedly like a complete moron. Like it was nothing new, but we didn't want a moron while a war was going on. And the only problem was John Kerry was such a bloviating moron. Let me talk 20 minutes about something that should have been took 2 minutes. And he flip-flopped. This is going to be Romney's problem. He got so bad, people were bringing flip-flops to his, flip-flop shoes to his meeting and throwing them and stuff like that. But anyway, regardless. So the point is here is that what this might show to some extent is that the cultivation theory is somewhat wrong, or maybe the conflict view is wrong, because this is a major news outlet. This is, I believe, NBC News with Brian Williams. Or MSNBC actually, which is a cable news network, talking about a mistake that the president made. And I would suggest to the president that either one thing needs to happen, dude. You either need to start acting like this out in public, or just believe that somebody's listening to you. And not say this stuff out in public. Because this looks really, really ugly. This proves what a lot of people think about politicians. That all they care about is getting elected. And that their behavior changes completely once they get their second term. So listen, this is the president talking to Andrei Medvedev, who's the current leader of Russia, if you want to call him that. He's keeping the seat warm for the dictator of Russia coming back, who's Vladimir Putin, who once he takes control this time, I don't think he's going to relinquish control. The Russian Constitution demands, I believe, that you can only have 2, maybe 3 terms consecutively. Vladimir Putin is probably as much of a dictator as Khrushchev and the rest of these people. He's just not a communist. And he will, if he's allowed to operate as a dictator, he will drag this country down. the Russian country now. But here is Medvedev and Obama talking about the missile defense system. Medvedev is saying to Obama, hey man, you got to do something about this missile defense system. We don't want this missile defense system in Europe because it looks like you're trying to win a nuclear war. Okay? And I got news for you. Both Russia and China have their nuclear weapons pointed at us still. And it really pisses me off that China does. How dare you point your weapons at us?
Obama is in South Korea tonight, and earlier today he accidentally let us all in on one of those moments that we know goes on among leaders when they're speaking freely, and he was, because the president clearly had no idea that a microphone could pick up the message he was sending to Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. Medvedev is about to leave office and make way for Vladimir Putin, and the president's comment had to do with missile defense and his own election back home.
My wife's elected. Yeah. After my election, I won't trust her. No. I trust this foundation to live in and understand.
That conversation took place in Seoul at a nuclear security conference, and today, by the way, Mitt Romney, who wants the president's job, called the comments by President Obama an alarming and troubling development. He called the Russians our #1 enemy and later thought better of it and clarified his position.
So he made a good statement. He attacked Obama for a dumb statement, and then he made an even worse statement. What Mitt Romney said was way worse than what Obama thought he was talking privately. Mitt Romney said, you know, all right, maybe you feel like Russia's the #1 enemy, and they're not. Okay, we're not fighting. I'll tell you right now, you ain't drafting me. I'll move to Canada right now.
Back to reality, cold reality. President Obama was...
You are not drafting me into a war to fight Russia, because that is death. Okay, because they have at least 5,000 nuclear weapons. That's going to turn ugly real quick, and I don't think they have any qualms about using chemical or biological weapons anyway. So for Romney to say that, it's like, man, he can't ever get a break. He took one step up and take 5 steps down. But so what was so bad about what Obama said, or was there anything bad about what Obama said?
It shows that he's either been holding back, or he knows that he has to appeal to certain people, and then if he wins that second election, he'll be able to do whatever he wants.
So is Obama a different kind of politician, or is it the same old politician?
They probably all do stuff like that.
But Obama said he was going to be different. He was going to change the tone in Washington, and he was hope, and yes we can, and we're going to change the whole world.
I think he wants to concentrate more on the re-election because of the way Republicans have, constantly downgraded him.
So you think part of this has to do with the fact that because the Republicans have been jerks in Congress and haven't let him pass anything, and attack his health care bill, that he's just resigned? Here's the problem, though. We have not had a budget since 2009. Does that sound like we're going to get a budget before the fall of 2012? So now this country is going to be operating another 5 to 6 months without a budget. Is that going to turn out well for our national debt? What do you think national debt's going to be by the time Obama decides and the rest of the Congress decides to rein in all this garbage? And I got news for the president. He thinks, here's the impression, that first of all, he's pretending to be one person right now, but when the election happens, what's going to happen? He's going to turn, it's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And I think that this scares the hell out of people who really are lukewarm on their support of him. That what's he going to be when he doesn't have to run for election? And I got news for you. He doesn't have to run for election, but what party does in 2016? What party would like to retain the White House in 2016? Yeah, so if Obama acts like a complete fool, or goes extreme, or starts doing crazy stuff, are the Democrats going to win the White House? Do you think that they're going to like the sitting president, ruining their chances for Hillary to get into the White House? And I can almost assure you, don't you think Hillary's going to run in 2016? I think if she could have got away with running in 2012, she would have done it. She would have challenged her own president. I have no doubt in my mind. And she's getting older. I don't know how old she is now. She's probably 66 or 67 years old. So, but women live longer. She's still pretty smart.
I think she'll be 69.
Which is kind of old because they were giving McCain crap. But Ronald Reagan was 60-some years old, and that was the 80s when people dropped dead, and he got shot within 2 months of being in office, although let's hope that never happens.
He would fall asleep in cabinet.
yeah, I mean, and besides, it seemed like the last 2 years he was suffering from Alzheimer's disease. And what was worse is they had him by the tail with the Iran-Contra affair. They pretty much had him nailed. They were probably going to impeach him, and he kept saying, I don't remember, and all this stuff. And George H.W. Bush actually came out to be the one who was very involved in this type of stuff. So, anyway. What about this one? I wonder if this is Chris Matthews' response to what happened. Let me see this for a second.
Submitted to a social media site. One person wanted to know if the president ever going to extremes to beef up his own favorability. Let's listen.
One of you, maybe it was you, maybe it was somebody else, this is true, asked this question. Have you posted yourself a supportive opinion on a website under a disguised name pretending you are one of the supporters of President Obama? I hadn't thought of this. But the truth is, I have not done this. Maybe my daughters have.
Maybe
but
not.
I haven't done that myself.
Maybe they wrote my dad needs to spend more time with me. Because he's out fundraising and hanging out in South Korea with President Medvedev or whatever. That guy's not the president. He's the president of the lemonade stand here in the Kremlin. Make me cappuccino, loser. I mean, that guy is the most powerless idiot in the world. Anyway, all right. So let's move on to the test. I want to go over the test, and then we'll talk about some of the issues in Chapter 8. And Chapter 9. All right. So the first question is relatively straightforward. Let me make this a little bit bigger so everybody can see this. And we'll talk about the slideshow here as well. So, what is cultivation theory? Give me the general theory. So the general theory is sort of either this version or just the simple, the straightforward version is TV viewing leads to the cultivation effect. But there is this element of that these things can impact. Remember, if you want to look at some of those constructions of different types of theories, at least you're going to have to discuss these later on. Either in Chapter 2 or Chapter 3, or Question 2 or Question 3. But if you see 7.1 there on page 138, that's sort of the new and improved version of cultivation, or at least in response to the criticisms in Chapter 4 and 5 by Hirsch and others, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. But the basic formula is no matter what your demographic background is, for the most part, and again, this was up until cable and a lot more other outlets were available, and also more research on the cognitive processes that go behind cultivation, that heavy amounts of television viewing, and particularly television news viewing or crime dramas, can lead to pretty strong cultivation effects when it comes to how people perceive the real world. That's the point. It distorts their perception of the real world. But if you watch a lot of crime drama, a couple things can happen. One, you might think violent crimes are much more common. You might also think that everybody who gets arrested or everybody who commits a crime goes to jail. That's not even close to the case. I would say that for murder, 37% of all murders are unsolved. I mean, that should concern people. That's why I hate shows like, it's not the only reason why, Cops is the worst propaganda I've ever seen in my life. There's never any corrupt cops on there. The cops never commit any acts of excessive violence. They never run their mouth about racial epithets or plant evidence or all this crap that cops have been known to do for hundreds of years. Okay, going back to the beginning of police forces in this country. But on top of it, every single person is guilty that they arrest, and every single person that committed a crime is caught. And in Law and Order, does anybody? I mean, some of you said that some people are exonerated, right? But usually it's a long, involved process. Do they eventually, if they do find somebody that's exonerated, let me put it another way. On Law and Order, does anybody who's guilty get away? And it's probably like controversial, like the people, the Law and Order, the prosecutors are all, we're going to get you, buddy, or something like that. But most people, they show them as guilty. Do they show the crime beforehand?
Criminal intent.
Okay. But still, the idea is, and society wants people to believe this, that if you commit a crime, you're going to get caught. Okay, that's the cultivation theory. Obviously, it's not that simple. But for young people, or uneducated people, Or more importantly, people who don't know the criminal justice system, that might be what they want to believe. Also, it might be based on people's past experiences or memory, like you were talking about, right? That, hey, I remember this narrative from before, that these are narrative, dramatic techniques, all right? So basically, let's talk about that heavy viewing leads to distorted view of reality. What do cultivation theorists say is the impact of violence on TV and people's attitude towards crime and support for harsher penalties? In your answer, discuss the mean world syndrome. He talks about that. You can look in the index because he mentions that many times. If you look up mean world theory or scary world theory, it's called both. Mean world syndrome, pages 42, 55, 62. I don't know if they put scary world theory in here. No, it's called mean world. I've seen it used both ways. And then why does television shows violence at such a high rate connect to the drive for profit by media companies? There you might want to bring in what we were talking about in the first section about media monopoly and what it does to content. And you may one of the things you might want to do is go online and look up the most watched program. You can do this right now. It'll show you straight off what goes on here. This is TV Guide. And remember, we did this in class where I asked people to list their favorite shows. Look at this. These are all, every single one. Let me make sure. No, Breaking Bad this is a cable show. Criminal Minds is a cable show. FX is, that's technically not, that's not FX. That's a rerun anyway. You know why that one's on the top? Guess who's in that one? Yeah. Ashton Kutcher is a disaster, isn't he? Go back to tweeting and hanging out with Demi Lovato. Maybe Demi Moore, right? Is he pseudo married to, common law married to? He wishes he was married to Demi Lovato. Anyway, Lifetime is a cable network, but the rest of these basically, the Big Bang Theory. This was a network show, but it's on TBS as a rerun. But again, American Idol, what a shock, right? Fame, sensation. People like this because they like to imagine that they're an American Idol, or they can get famous, or some people just like to be critical and watch the show. And I think this show is terrible. I don't even watch that. The only time I ever watched this is when I would go see my dad in Arizona. My stepmom was into it because she's hypercritical and she loves making fun of people. That's the type of person she is. But anyway, and without Simon Cowell on the show, it's terrible. And guess what? There's Simon. Right? And Paula followed him over too. Even Paula knew. Right? Probably took her pills and her alcohol. One day she missed American Idol because she said she tripped over her dog. Okay? Which sober people don't trip over their dogs. Anybody trip over their dog lately? Especially if you have a small dog. You know not to. And small dogs should know. Chihuahuas know better than to stand by your feet. So anyway, but NCIS #2 on the list. CBS. Voice, isn't this the one with Christina Aguilera on it? Yeah. And there's a reason why Christina Aguilera is on the show. What do the other panelists look like? They're good looking? And the point of The Voice, remember we talked about this. What's the point of The Voice? They want to actually get rid of this aspect of television, what television does to singing. It's the Milli Vanilli effect. We want the real singers from Milli Vanilli, not the other people. So what's the point of The Voice? What do they do when the performers are on stage? They turn their back. Okay, I doubt anybody did that with Christina. Okay, she's considered by many people to be one of the most attractive people in entertainment. Anyway, Person of Interest, isn't that a crime show? Not like a crime investigation show, something like that. X Factor. Again, what do you have here? Fame, sitcoms that are heavily sexually oriented. There was an episode of The Big Bang Theory where Wolowitz got a robotic arm stuck on his penis because he was having it help him out. And he had to go to the hospital and drag it there. They used unbelievable language on that show. That show is not for 10-year-old kids. Seriously. And the funny thing is, it's about nerds. And every single time they put Kaylee Cuoco on that show, what's her shirt look like? It's not a shirt. She never wears a shirt that goes above here.
I mean, seriously. She wears shirts that with the little straps. It's supposed to be LA, but like with her breasts sticking completely out. Do you think they do that? You think they don't do that? You don't pay somebody $1 million an episode to not exploit them. How much money do you think they gave Halle Berry in Swordfish? A lot. Probably $3 million. And it was so dumb, it wasn't even in the plot. She was just like, meh, there you go. Take a picture. At least in Monsters Ball it made some sense. You know, it was part of the plot. It was graphic, but it was part of the plot. So anyway, person interest, revenge. What's this show? Anybody know about this one? It's probably some murder or something. It's got the name Revenge in it.
It's like The Life in the Hamptons.
Is it?
Yeah.
So what is it about? Like intrigue and soap opera kind of stuff? Or
Yeah, like this.
like Dallas?
This girl's dad got framed for
Oh, okay.
murder of people and stuff, and she gets
So it's tied in with crime. What about Bones? What's that? That's starring Zooey Deschanel's sister. So she's got a sitcom that's all sexually oriented too. Okay. But what's Bones about? But she's a she's a criminal investigator or something, right? Isn't that what she does? She's like a forensic anthropologist, but she works for a crime place. Doesn't she work for a crime thing? Something like that. It's like X-Family or something, or X-Files. Dancing with the Stars again, one of the Fame shows. What about Modern Family? What's that about? Is there any sexualized people in that one? I can think of one woman in that show alone that probably drives the ratings alone. What's her name?
Sophia Vergara.
Right, and she's on all these commercials. She sells hair products and everything else you can imagine. And worst of all, on the show, she's married to Ed O'Neill, the guy from Married with Children, who's probably 70 years old. By the way, at one point, he was drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Believe it or not. Anyway. Grey's Anatomy, what's that about? That's a medical show. What's interesting, if you look at what occupations do you think have the highest level of social status and prestige attached to them? What occupation? It's one only. Yep. 85% of Americans have a favorable rating towards doctors. That's why when they leave a sponge and nobody sues them a lot of the time. I mean, the doctors make mistakes. Just like people are much more willing to accept that dentists are quacks than doctors. Look. Medical schools graduate a couple thousand people sometimes over a 3 or 4 year period. You got to think 50% of these people are not qualified, to put a Band-Aid on you. That you can look. People can cheat their way through accounting. Don't you think they can cheat their way through medical school? And what do you think some people go into the medical field for? Because they care about people, because they want to solve diseases, or because they want to put MD on the back of their Mercedes and live in a McMansion? Isn't that why a lot of people go into medicine? It's wrong. If you want money, go into stock. Well, not anymore. You can go into finance. I mean, I'm telling you, you'd be better off going on X Factor than being a doctor if you want to make money, because it is frustrating. There's 12 years of disgusting school. You got to cut cadavers open. You smell like formaldehyde for years. Do you like hanging out with dead bodies? Because that's what you do. And if you don't like blood, you need to stay away. Now, a lot of these people, they'll go become plastic surgeons or podiatrists or things like that. Areas of the medicine that don't get as much respect. There's New Girl, that's Zoe's show. So her sister, the two stars of these shows are sisters, and they're on the same network, which is very interesting. It shows you the, lack of a better word, the sort of insular nature or incest that goes on in Hollywood. That Charlie Sheen's dad was an actor, his brother's an actor. That this is a problem when talent is not spread out. You get, now I'm not saying that both these girls are untalented, but you need to expand the pool out. 2.5 Men. Was there any sexual content in there? How about drinking? Doesn't he drink? Didn't Charlie Sheen's character drink? Don't they kill him off? Did they already kill him off?
Yeah, for Ashton.
Criminal Minds. What a shock. What about Breaking Bad? What's that about?
Meth.
Yeah. The guy gets cancer, so in order to make sure that his family has enough money, he goes and starts selling, buying, or manufacturing crystal meth and selling it. Eventually, have you watched the show?
Yeah.
Eventually he ends up killing people. Does he end up robbing and stealing or anything? Do the police go on his trail?
Yeah.
And is it ended yet? Or are they going?
No, it's on it next season.
Close to the final season. They'll probably end up killing this guy. And it's the guy from Malcolm in the Middle. Right? Remember the father from Malcolm in the Middle? That's who that is. He actually played Tim Whatley on Seinfeld, too. Here's one. There's some of your favorite show right there. Right? What's that about? And they're not violent, right? They go up and go, can I please have a cup of your blood? Drain it in a non-violent fashion. Right? And that's about supernatural creatures. I'm surprised this one's on. What's this one? The dumbest show that's ever been invented. It's like Real World, except for it's dumber. I mean, MTV show was stupid too. Don't you think Real World was dumb? I'm sorry, but does anybody like? I'll let if somebody likes the show, they can. Because I don't mean to like say that. I'm not saying you're stupid if you watch it, but there's a lot of people just don't like these shows. Part of it has to do with when reality shows first came out, they were unique and different. Now it's like, ugh, another one of these shows. How many of these do they have now? Isn't there 5 or 6 or something like that? And I think one of the dumbest ones, other than Fear Factor, which came off the air, that was the dumbest show. That was something out of like Japanese game shows where people. There was one Japanese game show where the goal was to see who could go the longest without having to pee, and they would make them drink beer and tea and sit in cold water and all kind of. I'm sitting there watching. How is this not human rights abuse? The only reason why it was because these morons signed on the dotted line and said, and again with Fear Factor, you ain't going to make me eat rotten deer testicles and drink 10-year-old eggnog and dump bugs and snakes and all this for money? No, I think I'll take my dignity and go somewhere. There's easier ways to make money. But other than that, the other dumb one I've seen is Amazing Race, where they make these people go around the world and act stupid in some foreign country where probably some of them are eventually going to get arrested. There was actually one incident where a contestant died. A boulder came off the mountain and knocked their Jeep off the hill. They didn't even publicize that. And I'm telling you right now, with American Idol, somebody's going to shoot one of these people, or on X Factor or something. Someone's going to kill Simon. I'm surprised somebody hasn't killed Simon Cowell already. Someone's going to go berserk. At one point, there was this woman who was stalking Paul Abdul that the producers let on the show. Have you ever seen this? All right, if we have time, I'll show you this a little bit. So let me write that down so I remember. It's creepy. Paul Abdul stalker. She sits there and she's like, "Hi, Paula. It's good to see you again." And the producers thought that would be funny.
Why would they let her on?
For ratings! Why do they show these bloopers? With William Hung paid through medical school through these bloopers. At least he took it as funny. Some of these people think that they're really good at singing. I just can't. I'm like, here's a video, or here's an audio recorder. Record your voice. We're not lying to you. This speaks to how delusional people's family and this is why you can't believe what your family and friends say to you. Family and friends, although it depends on what your family is. Some family is brutally honest, and sometimes that can be bad, right? You're so ugly. And you shouldn't tell kids that kind of stuff. You also shouldn't tell them you're the most beautiful person on earth, or you're the most talented person on earth, or you're going to be the king of the world, or whatever, some Titanic nonsense. Don't tell kids that kind of stuff. If they're Michael Jordan, you'll know it by the age of 12. Okay? Seriously. So tell them that stuff then. Don't tell them when they're 3, or 4, or 5. And kids get their kids, especially parents of young girls, get their daughters involved in these dumb pageants and things like that. By the age of 4 and 5, remember John Benet Ramsey and stuff like this? That this is somewhat, in the minds of many people, abusive. So this is where they put cameras in the house, and they basically tell them, all right, look, make a big stink about something. Get into an argument. Get into a fight. Is there ever been a Big Brother where everybody got along? Don't they vote each other out of the house? Isn't it sort of like Survivor? Anyway, it just shows that nobody cares. Anyway, so you think you can dance. Here's another show where people fall on their face. And this is, here, singing badly just hurts my ears. Dancing badly can kill you. You can fall on your head. I've seen people, they were trying to do front flips and fell smack down on their face. Anybody ever seen this stuff? It's crazy. Okay? So if you can't dance, please don't go on this show. Go in front of a dance instructor at the school and see if he or she thinks you're good enough. Because you can hurt yourself. And one guy, he was like, dance is everything. It's my whole life. It's the only thing I want to do. He went out there and did some squawk walk or something like a goose on crack or something. And they were like, get out, dude, you're done. And he started crying and hyperventilating and passed out in the hallway, and they had to go get an ambulance to revive this guy. That shows a serious emotional level of sickness. That guy tied his entire life to what happened in the audition room. That's a dangerous precedent to set. The Closer, that's a lull drama, right? Bachelorette, I can't believe that's still on. That's another reality show. Weeds, this is about marijuana, about rich white suburban women selling weed to people. Probably the kid. Oh, there's a winner. We all know what that is. Here's The Voice again. There's America's Got Talent. Are you guys starting to get the idea that Americans want to be famous? But that they're obsessed with this stuff? Man, people's jobs must be absolutely terrible for them to want to be famous. Because I'll tell you right now, there's bad things to being famous. Seriously, bad things. Okay? You never get a moment's rest. People dig through your trash. They wait outside your house. Some weirdo stalk you. Go ask Serena Williams what happens when people stalk you. This guy tried to kill her and stuff. Okay? He would go to her tennis event and whisper like perverted, disgusting crap at her during the match. Like he'd sit right in the front row when she was serving, he'd be right behind her and talk about her underwear or something, or what he was going to do to her. I was like, man, what the hell is up with that? Brad Pitt, some woman kept breaking into his house, putting his clothes on and laying on his bed when he would come home. She'd be laying on his bed. Some of you are like, cool. That's not cool. Okay? She could have pulled a knife out or something like that. She could have poisoned his food, anything. People are sick. The Bachelor, again, then we got The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. Glee, this is a sort of a sitcom. It's an hour. It's not really a sitcom. It's sort of a high school drama with music. And it's got music in it. So, again, what's this? Does anybody know what that is? It's on BET.
I don't know.
Let me click on it. Come up. I guess not.
It's the Black Cat, right?
I don't know what happened there. See, probably sent me to an advertisement. Anyway. Oh, here it is. The wedding episode. Third season concludes with Melanie trying to marry Derwin before Janae gives birth to Derwin. That's real good. Even if it requires sacrificing her dream wedding. So I guess it's some kind of reality show or something. That should tell you right there the way that the networks pander to racial minorities or just race in general. So the game House, that's a doctor show, but it's sort of like a mystery, right? He always tries to solve some mystery. There was a study that showed that people who watch House tend to ask their doctors just different questions. Let's see. Keeping Up with the Kardashians, yeah, that's a winner. V, that's the thing about like the that's actually a remake from a thing that was in the 80s. I'm not sure what Castle is. How I Met Your Mother is a sitcom. What's the Kate? Anybody know? Oh well. Skins, I don't know what that is. Anybody know what that is? Mad Men, what's that one? Yeah, and then they smoke throughout the thing, and they have sex with their secretaries and all this other stuff. Community, does anybody know what that is?
It's a sitcom.
Whatever happened to Outsourced? Remember that one with all the Indian stereotypes on it? Anybody remember that show?
That was awful.
Maybe they got rid of it because too many people from India got... That upset me as an American.
Yeah, no.
I mean, my gosh. Dexter, what's that one?
Serial killer.
Yeah. Right. What's Chase? Anybody know what that is? Deadliest Catch. This is a thing for like crab fishermen and stuff, and someone get knocked off the boat. Like 3 or 4 people died on the show. That's why it's called The Deadliest Catch. You're not going to put a show on called The Safest Catch, having somebody just, fishing for trout. They put that on ESPN, And that should show you something. How many times, when I was a kid, they showed fishing on TV constantly. They don't show it at all anymore, do they? Because it's not exciting. It's not exciting to go fishing. That's not the point. Nobody goes fishing to get amped up. You go fishing to relax, supposedly, right? Seriously. Courtney and Kim Take New York. The Walking Dead. Pretty Little Liars. Isn't that one that some of you guys said was your favorite show or something? Nikita. I'm not sure what that was. That's probably some kind of murder show with a woman on some kind of femme fatale. Off the Map, Bad Girls Club, Smallville. That's
Vampire Diaries, Days of Our Lives, that's a soap opera. Biggest Loser, that's about weight loss. Secret Life of the American Teenager, didn't some of you say that? Maybe not, I don't think it is. Entourage, that's the thing about celebrities and them being degenerates. One Tree Hill, that's a soap opera. Hot in Cleveland, that's like a sitcom with Betty White in it. Which boggles my mind that somebody who's 82 can... She's
90.
Whatever, she's a sex symbol for like 75-year-old men, I guess, or something. They like older women. Damages, anybody know what that one is? So you start to get it. Detroit 187, Hawaii 5-0, Boardwalk Empire. That's about gambling and stuff. It goes on and on and on. So you see it there. We'll look that up later. Anyway. Alright, so you get an idea there of what's going on. And you can look up the mean world theory in the back of the book. I told you 45 and those other pages, 62, I think was the other one. Anyway, so what is mainstreaming? And for this one, you can use the chapter that's on mainstreaming. But I gave you also a succinct definition here. So this is the slideshow. Whoops, sorry. Here's a definition of simple cultivation theory. Here are some of the expansions of the theory. We talked about this element of looking at one thing that Gerbner did in 2002, after he did an interview and after right around the time this book came out, was he made two kind of corrections to the theory. One involved the parental co-viewing. And we looked at that with the Kaiser, if you saw the Kaiser Family Foundation study that looked at that children who say their parents put rules on their media use tend to have a situation where they watch less media in general. So anyway, all right. But again, and then he also talked about this resonance, that things that mimic or back up things you already feel or already experienced. You know, if you've been mugged and you watch the local news and it talks about how muggings are going up, don't you have every right to be afraid? Or at least be concerned, or do something about it? That's not unreasonable. If there's a serial killer in your neighborhood, I don't think it's unreasonable to go get a security system or something like that. That's not paranoia. It's like what they say, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean there aren't people after you. Okay, seriously. But here's mainstreaming. The television plays a central role in society. While there are many diverse cultures in the United States and the world contributing to a variety of beliefs, values, attitudes, and practices, creating our unique cultures, there's one thing that ties us all together, television. Of course, there are many people that do not have access to television, but the underlying truth is the reach of television is so expansive that it has become the primary channel responsible for all mainstream in our culture. The television reflects the mainstream, but also cultivates the mainstream. The two of these things are both going on at the same time. That you cannot put material on television that's not accepted by the mainstream. But the mainstream is also constructed by television itself, and the media in general. So mainstreaming is more than the sum of all cross-currents and subcurrents. It represents the broadest range of shared meanings and assumptions in the most general, functional, and stable way. Heavy television viewing may override individual differences and perspectives, creating more of an American and increasingly global melting pot of social, cultural, political ideologies. Now, we're running low on time, but I do want to point out to you, it's 12:05, right? I made a mistake one time. I let you guys out at 11:40. No one said anything. Anyway. So what you see here, if you turn it on page 158 and 159, or I mean 148 and 149, and then on page 151, if you look at what they're saying here is that, look, the difference between light viewers and heavy viewers overrides people's political identification, whether they're liberal or conservative or moderate on certain issues. For example, if you take a look at homosexuals, liberals are much more likely to accept that, whereas conservatives aren't. But among heavy and light viewers, the factors, the numbers are still similar. You can see this more specifically on page 151. So let me read this part of this real quick here. So it says, Table 7.1 shows that there are small but significant correlations in the expected direction between television exposure and the various dependent variables. The average of these 5 correlations, however, is a little less than those from the meta-analysis. To go down here. The Association for Views on Interracial Marriage, for instance, reflects a difference in support for such laws of about 11 percentage points between heavy and light viewers. Heavy viewers, consistent with cultivation theory, are more supportive of a restrictive law proposal. They want more restrictions on interracial marriage. Now, part of this is, we talked about this, the culture changes, so these values change. Note also that the weakest correlation corresponding to the two areas least clearly implicated in television content, according to known message analysis data, i.e. abortion and marijuana use. As we know, however, small overall effects may mask important subgroup differences, particularly when mainstreaming is at work. More importantly, this masking process may be due to the presence of a mediator variable. The point they are trying to get across here, it says here on table 7.2, shows the scale values of dependent variables in the ideological subgroups across levels of television viewing. So what they're mixing here, we'll continue with this on Thursday. And so bring in your questions on test 2, especially questions 2 and 3. What they're talking about here is they're looking at what's the impact of both political values or identification and heavy and light viewing. What's the interaction here? Okay, what they found out was if you watch less television and you're liberal or moderate or conservative, you tend to be more in line with what those traditional positions are on abortion or gay marriage or racial intermarriage or any of these things than if you are heavy viewers, which tends to push people towards the middle or towards the conservative idea. The only one, and this shouldn't shock anybody, the only one of these things that moves more towards the liberal position when you watch TV is marijuana use. It said that people are in favor of legalizing marijuana. People who watch more television, regardless of their political identification, are more accepting and more willing to see marijuana become legalized than any of these other positions. And I just find that mind-boggling that somebody could be in support of restrictive abortion laws, support restrictive interracial marriage laws, and then still be in favor of marijuana. You can see that on this page here. Liberal, moderate, or conservatives. Because liberals would be in favor. They don't change their position. Conservatives that are heavy viewers of TV tend to be more supportive of marijuana legalization. Just like similar here with interracial marriage, most people are the more moderate level, even liberals and liberals are, sorry, they reverse it here. Liberals are at the bottom here because they don't support restrictive laws and interracial marriage, but liberals that are heavy viewers tend to be more supportive of restrictive interracial marriage laws. So they are hitting on something. Now we'll pick this up on Thursday. We'll start with mainstreaming. We'll finish questions 2 and 3. Please come in and read. I'll give you guys an oral quiz on Thursday. If it appears like most of the class is reading, I won't give you a written quiz. Let's put them on that table for me, please. Thank you. See you guys on Thursday. Check the syllabus for the chapters. Okay, the problem is today is kind of a good day to do it.
Not today, whenever you're available.
Thursday would probably be better. The thing is, I usually don't hear